Casey give his last talk before he leaves the state. So we do appreciate Casey. Yeah, we appreciate Casey. This is his second talk, so it'd be good to get a bit of a case study from their perspective on the stuff that he's been working on in the content management system project. So
a Casey study.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good one.
I go to type it out.
You missed out on that.
He's a dad too.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let Casey get on with it. Jason's recording again this month. I remembered to get Casey to record his screen, so I won't have to piece it together slide by slide like I have the last few times. So yeah, thank you, Casey.
Cool. Thanks, guys. So tonight I'll be presenting a case study of the project that we've been working on for 2.5 years now, 2.5 years or so. It's basically a web content management system for the University of Adelaide. So before we get started, who am I? I'm Casey Fulton, developer at the University of Adelaide, obviously. You can find me on Slack, email, anything in between, not Twitter. I don't know why, I'm just not into that. Other things, feel free to ask questions at any time. I love questions. Please just blurt them out. Don't even put your hand up. Also, I tend to talk fast when I'm excited, so just do this. If you want me to slow down, I'll try. The other thing is it's kind of ironic that I'm giving this talk now, given that I am leaving Adelaide in the next month. On the 8th is when my contract expires at the University of Adelaide, and I'm leaving back to Brisbane. So yeah, it was kind of good to be able to have a retrospective of what we've done in the last 2.5 years. Okay, just want to preface this by saying it's just my opinion. It's not necessarily indicative of what other people at the university think, or yeah, I can probably just leave it at that. Some of what I'm going to talk about relates to the machinations of working for a large organisation. That's pretty normal to me, but for most PHP devs, I would think a lot of them are sort of one-man bands or tend to work in very small teams. So I guess it's an interesting prospect to look at what people, like the kind of organisations that people work for. So raise your hand if you're one of the people that is a one-man band developer or is like the only developer at their organisation. Everyone has like at one stage, right? So cool. Okay, so there's a few. What about if you work on a team and do development? That's pretty much everyone. Cool. Okay. What about if you work for an organisation where you're one of many, many, many teams that do web development? It's just the University of Adelaide people. Whew, okay. So just a bit of background on the University of Adelaide. I've got to stop saying just the university because there's 3 here. God damn it. 21-something thousand students, 3 and a bit thousand staff, 783 teachers and or researchers. So a lot of people involved. It's a group of 8 university. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's basically like a Peabody club of Australian universities. All of the fancy sandstone universities are in it. Although often people say, oh yeah, but it's the smallest one. So yeah. Kind of funny, I guess. There's 245 staff in technology services at Adelaide University. About 25 of those are solely concerned with doing web-based development. Not necessarily PHP, there's a lot of Ruby devs or Java devs or anything in between. But there's a lot of people that do web there, so it's kind of an interesting situation. The rest of TS does all sorts of things, like manages classroom information systems, networking, servers. They have a high-performance computing cluster. So like all of that happens within technology services. Very little of it is outsourced. The university has a whole bunch of websites, over 1,000 of them. How they define websites is really weird. It's basically like a domain path combination or who has access to that set of the website. So I mean, if you imagine a tree of a website, Adelaide EDU, different portions of it can be considered sites within a major site. So there's a lot of them. And there's this really weirdly diverse range of content owners. So most of the experience we have with making products for people in the web space is that they really care about their content. But at the university, we get everything from like grizzly tenured professors that really, really care about what colour green is on their frog research page, all the way up to staffers for the health department that are being paid minimum wage and are just writing out copy. So we get everything in terms of who calls the web team and says, oh yeah, we need this thing or whatever. So fascinating situation from that perspective as well. Okay. So a bit of history about the web at the University of Adelaide. About 10 years ago, a decade ago, a rift started to develop between the marketing department and technology services. Marketing was finding that technology services couldn't really keep up with the pace of the web. And I mean, this happened in a lot of organizations around that time, right? Like traditional tech organizations weren't able to do web on that kind of pace. TS was sluggish to react to their evolving needs, and marketing was sort of bad at workflow planning, I guess, to an extent. So they would come up with an advertising campaign and then like need something to happen on it very quickly, and that didn't really mesh with the old world sort of technology department. So they split off, formed their own web team, built their own web content management system in Perl, which is a big monster thing on bespoke hardware, like 100 gigabyte RAM type bare metal hardware. And it serves a boatload of static content through Apache. And it's administered by a web front end built in Perl. And content editors use mostly Dreamweaver, I guess, to edit their static pages and then upload them via FTP to a stage. And then that stage is like pushed to production by the web front end. So it's pretty advanced for like a decade ago, really. But in this day and age, it's kind of like, not really. So pros for this. Jesus, it's fast. It's really, really fast. I mean, not much beats, for static content, Varnish and Apache, right? I mean, you cache the bejesus out of everything with lots and lots of RAM, and you just serve static content. And most of the web for University of Adelaide is not dynamic. It's just static information. It's owned by marketing, so they get to control everything, which is fantastic for them. I mean, they don't have to like wait around for TS when that crazy frog professor says, want my green thing. So also, because it's very simple, it scales really, really well. It's easy to handle a lot of concurrent requests for static content, right? So super simple. Cons, hard to resource. It's kind of difficult to find Perl developers here in Adelaide, pretty much anywhere for that matter. It has an aging code base that ain't nobody want to touch. The files, the Perl files are called things like Groovy and bonza.pl. I've yet to hear a logical explanation for that. So other more tangible problems are that the layout is baked into content. So when you're editing in Dreamweaver and you're writing your HTML and you're pushing it to an FTP server, all of your content is has all of the layout interspersed with it. And it means that when it comes time to change your look and feel of your website, you've got to go through and change all that content in order to achieve that. So really difficult when you have a marketing department's like, ooh, let's change something to red. You can't do that everywhere. So the other part of that is the fact that the web team spends a lot of its time being content cops. So content owners within the university, I mean, 300,000 staff, right? So you can imagine a lot of them are creating content on the web. They spend a lot of time policing that content, making sure that it's up to scratch with their web guide of components and whatnot. Cool. Okay, so let's do a quick demo of what the existing system looks like. So this is the infrastructure website for University of Adelaide. Actually, it's not. It's the web dev version of it. So this is the actual one. Looks pretty much exactly the same. But if you put in the web dev part, you get the same thing, but then you get this little bit down the bottom here where you can log in and do things. I don't think I have any access to be able to edit it, so yeah, no, I don't. Cool. All right, so web access. This is the web front end that enables you to do it. So you can edit your content through the actual website as well. It's like a content management system in the web, as well as you being able to push your files via FTP. In the management system, this lets you look at all the different sites. So let's find infrastructure. Go. That's the thing there. Cool. So this is a bunch of, I don't know, Perl generated stuff about the website. To tell you the truth, we don't really use this system, which is probably a bad thing because we're designing the replacement for it. So you think we'd be using it more. But yeah, I mean, this is the list of users that have access, and I'm not here, so cool. I guess that's all I really wanted to show you, just that this thing exists. Rad. Okay, so our project, the WCMS project, in order to solve those problems with the existing system, they formed the creatively named Web Content Management System project. Technically, it started a bit earlier than April 2015, but hands to keyboard happened then. So we were hired, myself, Michael, Simon, a bunch of other people, in April or May of 2015, and that's when we got to work, I guess. And it had not only the goal of fixing the issues with the existing content management system, but also to like try and mend that rift that exists between marketing and TS. And the way they did that was to get developers from both organizations, put them in the same room and see what happened, right? So, cool. A bunch of Drupal experts were hired. I wouldn't describe myself as a Drupal expert. PHP developer, sure. But Michael has worked for organizations that have contracted to places like Stanford, so big organizations. Simon Singularo has done a bunch of work in Drupal since like year dot, basically. So definite Drupal experts. And we also engaged a consultancy, Previous Next, which are like top tier gun Drupal consultancy. So that was good. Also, we were a testbed for doing Scrum Agile at the university, which was actually cool. I was like really on board with that because I come from a history of doing Scrum at other organizations. So usually that's like a dirty word and everyone's like, oh, Scrum, yeah, how dare you. But yeah, I was totally on board and was like keen for it from the start. Okay. So deliverables, what was our project supposed to deliver? Turns out it was 4 things. We didn't really quite understand this at the start. The way projects are created at the university is a fascinating system. It's almost like an Oscars night that they have, and they like vote on different projects, and people get tokens and stuff. But the project had this concept of creating a proof of concept that would prove that Drupal was a suitable candidate to replace their existing content system. But we very quickly pushed that one out of the way and solved that as being like, yep, no worries, it's going to be great. And we established these 4 deliverables. So a web style guide, that is a, that's pretty obvious, right? It's a style guide, so it was to take the existing look and feel of the website and codify it in some way so that we could then use that to build applications. A customized Drupal distribution, so Drupal on its own as a content management system is great, but you can get a lot of power out of it by doing integrations with the existing university systems, so that was part of it. A platform to host those Drupal applications, which I'm not going to say any more about right now, but a lot more later. And also developer tools. So I guess there was this perspective that if we were going to build a platform, we may as well make a bunch of tooling so that other developers at the university could use our platform and get benefits out of it. I'm looking at Michael now because he's one of those people. Okay, so the style guide. Let's talk about the first deliverable. It's actually really, really neat. Style guides are one of those things that a lot of people in the web space ignore because they're like something they either consume or a necessary evil that they have to deliver to a customer. But we use this system called Nile Style Sheets, KSS. And it's basically a way of doing like what PHP doc does, that it parses comments in your code and generates documentation from it. It's really neat. So you put comments in your Sass or SCSS and it pulls it out and builds a website for you. And that website has like a whole bunch of information in it. The other thing about our style guide is we made the decision to make it a living style guide. So it's not just going to end at some arbitrary date and then it's done and there's no further work on it. We publish an SLA. We have information about how to contribute. And like it's a living, breathing thing that receives updates on a regular basis. There's a static section of it as well, so you can do visual regression testing. So you can get a web app to look at the style guide over time, see what changes, and ensure that you're not breaking anything. I'm not sure how much we do that, but the possibility is there. So yeah, yes.
Every release that happens.
Yeah. Cheers.
Just that you're not involved.
No, I don't really touch this aspect of the project that much. So, but it is. It's one of my favorite parts of the project, and one of the things I think that was done really, really well. So Happy to talk about that, or get someone else to talk about it later if anyone's got questions. The other really good thing about it is that it provides real deliverables to developers. It gives a developer that wants to build an application at the University of Adelaide the actual markup that they need to put in their app to make it look like what the CSS is going to provide. So that's a really neat part of it. And big shout out to Previous Next, that agency that pointed us in this direction right from the start and got us like moving in that direction, because I don't think we would have done it without their input. So cool. All right, let's have a look at it. So yeah, as you probably guessed, the theme of my talk is demos. Everything's about demos, right? So let's actually have a look at these things. This is styleguide.adelaide.edu.au. It's live on the web. You don't need to be on the VPN or anything weird like that to have a look at it. By all means, check it out, have a look. It's very boring looking, which was a decision, I guess, that was made to not detract from the actual content inside there. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the components that are in here. So we've got some accordions. So what you get is like a description of the theme and then a demo of it. Like this is an actual accordion that would exist on the university website. I hate accordions, but anyway. And then down below here, you actually find all the markup. So this is the markup, the classes, all the stuff you need to put on your app in order to get that look and feel. So really like neat bit of kit for it. There's also description panels. That's probably a better one. These are kind of cute. There's like little picture boxy things. And then there'll be a bunch of markup down the bottom. Describes them all. Sweet. Okay.
So that markup's you're able to make, is it?
The markup is in comment. So when you're writing your CSS, you add like a, this is what my markup looks like, and it just pulls it out and spits it in here. So, yeah. Okay, I think that's it. The only other thing I have to say is that, like, if you ever have to deliver a style guide to anyone, like, definitely take a look at KSS, because you're going to provide them with something that is immediately valuable. Like, they can literally go here, click the copy button, and just paste it into their template program, and then replace any of the bits with template tokens, right? So if you're using Twig, like, you know, the bits from Twig that you want. Cool. Okay. Okay, next deliverable, Drupal distribution. This one's pretty obvious. I mean, it was just basically implementation of the style guide in Drupal with a bunch of integrations mixed into it. We made the decision to use Drupal 8 way back in April 2015 because it was going to be released sometime during that year. We had sites in production before Drupal 8 was technically released, so that was kind of neat of us, yay. So you get all the benefits of Drupal out of the box. I'm not sure, does anyone here use Drupal on a regular basis? Probably not. Yeah. So it's a total content management system. This thing is really powerful. You get like structured content with it. So that whole thing of trying to separate your presentation from your content, you get that. Bam, done. You get workflow management. These are mostly modules that you just install and away you go, but like they're part of the ecosystem. So workflow management, you can have the concept of content creators and then someone who authorizes it, and maybe they can't publish or whatever, so you can control that whole flow. You get roles and permissions, so you can assign those different roles to different people. And it's got a really awesome form builder. The web form module is like, damn, and this guy in particular has done a bunch of work on that, so yeah, love it. Anything else about it? I guess, yeah, all the integrations. So we've built a bunch of things in the WCMS distribution that are useful to the university. So things like single sign-on via CAS or provisioning users on a site, shared content, PeopleSoft integration. I'm not sure if that's actually happened yet or is just on the cards. News feeds, stuff like that. So like we've done a bunch of work on integrating uni systems into it. Cool. So let's have a look at it. Sweet. I want that one. So this is the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences page. This is one of the Drupal apps we have. So this one's at health.adelaide, our research. I think that's where the Drupal app begins, and this is a sub-page of it. So as I was saying about how what defines a site at the University of Adelaide, a site is just like any path, domain path combination, and you can have them buried within the tree, like however, and we do magic routing behind the scenes to stitch them all together. So here are some like content on it. These are those description panels we were looking at before in the star guide, and these are an accordion, so same deal. Cute. So let's log in and have a look.
Didn't we design a bunch of that stuff back in the day?
Had to make accordions.
Modules and stuff that are in there.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Oh, sorry, bro.
I'm trying to find it.
Let's have an edit and see what it looks like. Okay, so this is we use a system called paragraphs, which is like a way to separate your content into structured sections, of which can be different types. So those description panels, which is like a type that we've created, sit down here, and then in here there's going to be all this like content for the actual description panels.
So who edits this page? Do the professors edit this page? Or?
For the health faculty, they're mostly people that are paid to be web content editors. But like I was saying, there's total spectrum of who it can be. I mean, the people that edit content at the university are super diverse. I think this was mostly made by some people in the faculty and other people from marketing, because it was sort of one of the first few big faculty sites to go out for us. So, so yeah, you can see that content is totally separated here. Like this is the image is in a different thing. We can change the CSS in the background and still not have to make any alterations to the actual content itself. So cool, it's kind of neat. I could show you so much more in here, but like it's just Drupal. All right. Maybe someone else could do a talk on Drupal at a later date, and like cool benefits you get out of that, right? All right, let's get to the fun stuff. So, platform. What do I mean by platform? It's a bit weird, right? It's basically about hosting, isn't it? So, you've got Drupal sites and you want to host them. Kind of begs the question, why on earth are we making a platform? Surely this is a solved problem. I mean, there's lots of companies that would love to take our money to host websites, right? I mean, it's a pretty normal thing.
You don't actually have an answer, right?
Well, maybe. We could host our websites with something like Acquia. So Acquia is a really big Drupal-specific hosting organization that is started by the guy that founded the Drupal project. They have a big presence in Australia. A company I used to work for, Flight Centre, you might have heard of them. They host all their websites through Acquia. Like, surely we're not that crazy that we can't just do what they did, right? Maybe, maybe not. All right, so there's a couple of good-ish reasons. There's no Amazon data center here in Adelaide. So that means if we hosted our websites with AWS, Amazon Web Services, and I wanted to go to an Adelaide website from here, my traffic would go to the university, then through some tunnel or VPN off to Sydney or Melbourne, get serviced by whatever servers we had in AWS, come back through that tunnel to the Adelaide University, and then down to my computer here. And that's just immediately introducing a bizarre round trip time to some foreign city, which, considering that 90% of our traffic comes within like 20k of North Terrace, it's not a lot of reason to do that. So that's a good reason, sort of. The other one is because we can, and I'm not sort of tooting my own horn here or anything, like, I mean because the university can. The university has a massive technology services division. Web is just a tiny fraction of what it does. They have lots and lots of servers. They have lots and lots of support that are like constantly looking after big projects. They have the ability to actually build their own platform. So usually, when you're looking for hosting, you don't have that option. You've got to use an external provider. But when you actually can, like, you start looking at it as a real option, right? The other one is sort of scale. I mean, we were talking about thousands of websites before. Like, do we really want to pay Acquia on a per site basis for thousands of sites? Like, it's going to get expensive real quick, right? So as you probably expect, there's a few bad reasons too. The first of them is that customer told us to. Like, this is the hilarious part, is that I say we, but the developers that were hired that were not in the university came into this project and said, why the hell do you want us to build a platform? Like, no one does this. This is really unusual. And they said, oh, it's the way we've always done it. And they gave us the good reasons, and we said, yeah, okay, because we wanted to. It'd be fun, right? Yeah, let's build a platform. This would be great. So those are the bad reasons, I guess. And I've chucked scale in there as well, because like, oh, God, come on, man. Not everyone's Google, right? Jeez. Okay, so moving on. What to build? this is sort of the part that I guess found the most fun at the start of this project, is that when we were faced with this, like, okay, you have to build a platform, like, what do you actually build? Like, picture you're a developer arriving in an organization that says, build a web hosting platform. And we want to replace this massive, giant collection of Perl-backed websites with Drupal stuff. What do? There's a few options, right? So you could just make some giant bare metal server and install Drupal on it and point Adelaide EDU at it and just do the thing, right? That'd be monolithic. So that'd be like one giant Drupal installation. And that's great, because you've only got one code base to patch. So, you know, a security issue comes up with Drupal, you just go in, do the update, and yeah, everything's sweet again, right? Cool. Everything's in one place. You don't have to worry about, like, having a bunch of links to different things that are in different areas, so it makes that really simple. But obviously, I mean, everyone laughs because there's the obvious problems of there's no sandboxing. You break one part of it, you break the whole lot. That's just a total deal breaker immediately, right? And there's no scoping for custom code. That means, like, if someone comes to you within the university and says, oh yeah, we want you to make some like crazy events plugin thing that like displays a news feed for events coming up on the side, and like, your default answer is no, because any time that you make code change, that goes to everything. So you can't scope your customizations to just a subset of the website. And scaling is hard, or harder anyway. You can only scale, I can't remember what it is, horizontal. You can't scale vertical. You can only scale horizontal. So, cool. So the obvious solution to that is a handful of sites. You know, a few sites. Maybe you give a site to each faculty or something, or each division, or each whatever. Maybe you have 15 different Drupal installations, and you have them correspond to DNS names. So, like health.adelaide is one site. Research.adelaide is another site, or something along those lines. This is actually the most common approach. I mean, there's a reason why at Flight Centre, if you do a search on the main page, you end up at secure.flightcentre.com.au. It's not because it's secure. I mean, obviously everything is. It's just a different like vhost. It's a different IP. It's a box somewhere that's not where the rest of their websites are that they can put an application on, and you know, it's its own little snowflake. So it's very common for organizations to do this. The university dislikes subdomains. So this is one of those things that, you know, sort of makes it hard to do this, but yeah. Solves all those monolithic problems, like having a bunch of different sites. And it's really easy to move to the cloud. So like, you can pick up that research.adelaide website and just dump it on an Amazon host somewhere, and no worries, right? You just change the DNS to point at it, and then traffic goes there, not to your other host. So it's really good for, not for us as devs, because you know, that means outsourcing probably, but it's good for the business because they can say, oh, just put it somewhere else. Like if we're like, oh, I want my banner to be green on my frog research page, like, oh, I'm going to move to my different hosting. They can do that. So. But then you get these problems where you've got now lots of code bases to patch. Instead of there just being one or a few or whatever, you might get a creep of sites. Maybe you start with 15 Drupal installs, but you end up at 100 in a few years' time. And then patching just becomes a nightmare. You've got to maintain all these individual sites. So, after thinking about this for a few weeks, our project decided on what, for want of argument, we called, or at least I called, boatloads of sites. And we decided to plan for that site creep right from the beginning. So let's build a tool to automate management and patching and backup and whatever of websites. Let's build a centralized routing system to enable us to have sites spread all over the place and route between them magically. And let's use Docker. That sounds really cool. Yeah, that'll be fun. Only problem, we've got to build it, right? Like, this isn't something that you can just get off the shelf, or at least not that existed at the time anyway. So yeah, that's what we did. Cool. So we made this thing and creatively called it Site Manager.
Maybe it's hard.
It gets better. So Site Manager, this thing over here, this is just a Drupal website. It's a web UI for managing websites. When a user logs into it and adds a site or adds an environment for a site, it tells Jenkins, down here, to tell the build host, which is some other server somewhere, to kick off a build of that code base. So it goes out to Git, fetches the WCMS distribution, adds a little bit of configuration to it that is that site, health.adelaide, whatever, what path it sits at, that sort of stuff. Does the build process, composer install, usual stuff. Makes a database, does a couple of grants, that sort of thing, and then pushes it as a Docker image to a registry. And it then sits there waiting for the next thing that Jenkins does, which is it goes out to the utility container on a deploy target, where the site's going to be deployed, and tells it to pull that image from the Docker registry and run it on that deploy target. So, sorry if that's very quick, but that's basically the system of how we do builds with our current system. And we actually do the deploy part twice because we have one deployment of the web container in each DC. And you don't see database here anywhere because we just put that in a magic box behind a load balancer and forget that it's a problem. What about traffic? So requests come in from the internet and then hit the load balancer and then a routing layer, which is at the moment Varnish. And then there's a bunch of magic in that Varnish that goes, ooh, this is a request for health.adelaide/research. I know what that is. That's this server with this port number that's running some container on that port. I'll send it over there. So that's what happens in terms of traffic. So back at the start of the year, we decided that this is great, but there's a whole bunch of invented here magic in there, right? That we built, like a whole bunch of code we've got to maintain. It sucks, it's not maintainable. So we gave it a snazzy name and deleted a whole bunch of it. And replaced it with this thing called OpenShift. So OpenShift, if you're not familiar with it, is a Red Hat product. It's basically a collection of open source programs, Kubernetes, Jenkins, HA proxy, etcd, a bunch of other things. What it basically does is what our system does, but it's standardized. It uses this really cool system called source to image, where you can give a builder image, just a plain repo, like a plain Laravel app, Symfony app, whatever, and it'll just like go, oh, okay, I know what to do with that. That's a Laravel app. I'm going to do all the process, composer install. I know what to do, probably some other things. I don't know much about Laravel. And then it results in an image that's pushed to a registry. So the same thing we were building, but in a standardized manner that is supported by Red Hat. So it's crazy because, I mean, I'm not used to seeing this kind of like fast-paced magic from an organization like Red Hat. They're typically the very slow, oh, we're enterprise. We're going to do things, you know, very, very slow-paced. We use the last kernel that, you know, we're going to backport all the changes to the kernel for years. Like, it's just not, it's not their wheelhouse, right? So I must admit, when we started looking at OpenShift, we were a little bit like, I don't know, but damn, it's really good. It's like actually really surprisingly good. So cool. So it's now called Shepherd, is what we renamed our product to. Funnily enough, I don't think we've made the decision to rename the web front end Shepherd. Kind of like Shepherd maybe is the system and the web front end is Site Manager. I don't know. I had a meeting with marketing a while ago and they were like, we can't change the name of it. We've already started building like documentation for this thing. So yeah, whatever. That's a legit concern. All right, let's have a look at it. So this is Site Manager 2 web app. This is actually the second iteration of the original Site Manager. This is not Shepherd at the moment. We've sort of been through a couple of iterations with it. Just log into it, do the thing. So this is on the staff subnet. You can't get at this from even the regular university network as a student. You have to be on staff. So it's a Drupal application. It is themed like the university website for various reasons. And in here you see a whole bunch of sites. So what was the one I was looking at before? It was something about research. I don't know, it'd be one of these. But let's have a look at one that is not actually important in the grand scheme of things. The About site. Cool. So this is a site that's like, Adelaide edu/about. So that's the domain path combination that corresponds to this Drupal installation. And what environments does it have? It's got one environment, which is the production one, prod, at that URL, and it's got two instances in two data centers, Docker 2B DC1 and DC2. It's running, thank God. And it's on an old platform that we're sort of grandfathering out. Cool, okay, so let's have a look at the actual site. I think I brought it up before. Cool, so this is the About site for the university. It's got like a bunch of information about the university. Let's log into it and have a look. Oh, I don't have any permissions on it. So I've logged in. It's used Kaz to create me an account and everything, but I've got, usually with Drupal you get this bar across the top when you're an administrator or whatever, so let's have a look at users in here. Yeah, I'm not here. Okay, so let's add me. lots of cases. Admin, yeah, sure, okay. Okay, so now I'm in there. Log out, back in again. Yay, I'm an admin. Okay, cool. So this is like, that's the role management portion of our system. Neat. So Site Manager has this concept of distributions. So the WCMS distribution that our project has made is merely one of them. One of the guys here is responsible for a couple of the other ones, and these correspond to like Git repos. So we have one that is like a Drupal distribution that has a bunch of web content management specific stuff in it. It's really fat and bulky. But there are other ones that are about like researcher profile information or the style guide. Hey, it's like a an application that runs on our stack. So the style guide we were looking at before, yeah, it's hosted on this. They have like a box that's corresponding to them, all sorts of stuff. I think that's pretty much it. There's not really much more to show here. Let's have a look at Shepherd, the next generation one. We haven't really gone live with it yet. It's still in development, so I can show you a version that's running on my local machine. So this is shepherd.test. I don't know if you guys can see all the things. I probably should have zoomed in on the other stuff. That would have been good. So same deal. We've got distributions. The first thing you notice, it's not themed like the university website anymore. We decided that was just like a bad idea. Made like it's pigeonholing you into thinking about the way the university displays content rather than the way an admin app should display content. So this is just a dev version of it. I've only got the WCMS distribution in here, and I've just got one site. It's a test site. So unlike the other version I just showed you, this is backed by OpenShift, and I've got what's called MiniShift running on my computer, which is basically OpenShift inside a virtual machine. So you get like the complete stack of OpenShift inside a little VM, and you can look at it at some random URL. And the thing about OpenShift that makes it just really nice, in my opinion, is the UI is spot on. This thing is totally dynamic. When you make changes in the background, they're reflected here immediately. So it uses a whole bunch of WebSockets magic to make that happen. So if I actually split this out, let's see if this works. Go back to Shepherd and let's have a look at this site. And we'll add an environment. Okay, so let's add an environment. So what I'm doing is, in any given site, you might have a staging version of it where you're getting ready, or a production one that's live currently to the web or whatever. So sites have environments, and then environments in our old system used to have instances, or the actual individual running containers. We did away with the concept of instances. They're irrelevant. OpenShift manages all of that magic for us. So let's just add an environment. That's for test site. We haven't really tightened up the UI here yet. You would usually not have to select the site because I've just come from the site. It should know which site I want to add it to. And all of this would be defined by the application. I can just do / as the path. Sorry, it would be defined by the environment type. So the domain you get, if you're doing production, you'd get the real domain. But if you're doing a development one, you'd get like some crazy domain that might be like dev.adelaide or whatever. And the branch that needs to change as well because we're using a particular version to work with this. Okay, so if I deploy that, it's going to do the thing. And hopefully what will happen is, yay, it'll appear here in MiniShift. So what just happened then was Shepherd went and talked to MiniShift and told it, hey, can you please deploy an instance of this distribution somewhere? And it did it. Great. Wow, that actually worked. So up the top here in OpenShift, you get the route that corresponds to it. And I've just clicked through to that, and I'm seeing the Drupal install screen. So if you've used Drupal, you're familiar with this. But this is basically like, this is saying it's a blank, fresh version of Drupal. And we have to actually do the install process. It's just like, takes a while. It's taken a while. So back in here, we've got this concept of pods. So this is how many instances are running for that application. And like, O week's coming. Yeah, let's run 4 of them. It just does it. Game, hey? So yeah, I've just scaled up now to 4 containers, 4 web containers running that application. While it's doing something, I mean, Pingers is laughing at me because he thinks it's going to fail, but test it extensively. I've never done this before.
Work on that.
It's Mac. That's what it is. Yeah. So this is another instance of the WCMS distribution. It's actually going to be newer than the one we were looking at before because we've made changes to it, obviously, since then. God, it's still taking forever. If you're wondering what this thing is, the existing app that was there, our project uses a database that's provided by some other entity within the university, Enterprise Apps, and we just it's a magic black box we put data in. So we just made a MySQL instance in OpenShift to get started. So when you spin up Minishift as a process, like a script to run that gets things sort of ready for us. Okay, so site install is basically finished. Just need to add in the last couple of things like admin password, super secure. I don't care about country or any of that. And it should basically be done. Yay! So that's Drupal. And it's the WCMS distribution, so it comes with the mega menu thing and all the other fun stuff that we get with it. Cool. Okay, so back in OpenShift, let's have a look at that because this is the fun part, right? This application, OpenShift, has a bunch of cool features. This concept of pods is really neat. So these are all of the running pods, the containers that are actually executing our application at the moment. And you can click on one and have a look at it. You can actually look at the log output from it. So if I go to the site and refresh a bunch of times, I'm going to see, maybe, it might be round robining, failovering rather. I should see log output from the actual container saying, oh, I'm getting requests coming through. Maybe it's cached by varnish. Oh, who knows? You also get a terminal to it. So like in your web browser, you can do things straight on the container and be like, what's in here? Oh, there's some Apache processes running and stuff like that. So very powerful in terms of just your debug access you can get immediately to it. Events, everything as well. Our actual container has a bunch of environment variables that are passed down to it, and we use secrets for storing passwords and stuff as well, so it's kind of fun.
Is the secret stuff provided by OpenShift?
Yes, so it uses etcd, I think, in the background to provide that. So if you actually have a look at resources secrets, you can see them all. So this corresponds, this is WCMS D8 distribution. My site was called test, and it was node ID 6 in Drupal. So you see that 6 up there corresponds to it, so you can back reference to it. This is the secret that is passed through to it, and it has 2 passwords in it. And these get mounted in those containers, and then they're accessed by Drupal to tell how to access its databases.
So the secrets get made when you make the site in Site Manager?
Yes, yeah. So there's a bunch of processes that happen when we provision a site. One of them is create a default secret that's attached to that application that we just put secrets in. And it means that we have this, I guess it's a convention of saying there's going to be a file in etc secret that has all of your passwords and stuff in it. Yeah. So. Okay, so that's a good question because there are conventions, right? And our project set a bunch of these conventions for how things work, and that's what the dev tools part of our deliverable is talking about. So let's go back to thingy and move on. So last deliverable, dev tools. One of the things, I guess, once it was realized that our project was going to deliver a platform that could be used to develop web applications, and a pretty powerful one really, it was seen as a good idea to maybe try and get other people on board with using it within the university. So we wanted to set a standard community of practice for how to do Drupal development at the university. And I got to admit, we haven't been fantastic at it over time, but the intent is there. And this term, community of practice, it's like a businessy word for a businessy term for you're not allowed to sit together, but you've got to share knowledge. So yeah, love it. Things we provide that are actual tangible things are a base distribution. So a base Drupal, it's a leaner, more cut down version of Drupal that has university specific stuff in it and runs on our platform. And the way that works is, I don't know if you've ever done Composer New Project as a way to start using a framework or something. But basically what that does is it just clones a Composer repo and then does site install in it. Sorry, does Composer install on it. So really simple. And then inside that, there is a reference to the scaffold that is used to make things work in Drupal land with our Shepherd system that we've created. So they're deliverables that we provided. Also, we provide like a Dockerized development environment. I think some people are still using the Vagrant version of it, but they're basically the same thing from the perspective of like getting started deving on your machine, right? So I don't really have any demo of these portions of it because they're all on GitHub. If you're interested, hey, check out our stuff. We like publish everything open source. So University of Adelaide has a bunch of different Git repos that have that entire Shepherd system for managing websites is totally open. Like you can look at all of our commit history that probably has flavorful language in it. And other things. Oh, geez, the OpenShift client. So the way we get Shepherd to talk to OpenShift, we made a client that does that. We started down the path of trying to use an automatically generated one, but that was a nightmare. The image that is used by OpenShift to build a Drupal application, source to image, that's all live, published. The project that we use to get started doing development and the scaffold portions, they're all there. So if you ever want to have a look through something, hit us up, add comments, whatever on it. So we're always in the PHP Australia Slack channel as well. So cool. That's pretty much it. If you've got any questions, now is a really good time.
Quick one. How do you manage? Does everyone always add content via staging and then you push to production? Or?
Do you want current or do you want new system?
Well, I don't know, because I know that Drupal in the past, there's no UIDs or anything on content. So if someone adds a page, potentially it's going to have the exact same ID on staging as it would in production.
That changed in Drupal 8.
Yeah, so new Drupal 8 was adding that in.
So everything we're doing is Drupal 8, just to be clear. So it does have UIDs and you can sync that content if you set that up. We're not doing that.
Right.
We're just editing content with using workflow on the production
Dev
side.
on prod. So,
but you can have draft revisions and all this type of thing.
The concept of a staging environment and a production environment is very useful for application development at the university. But like that's the problem with when you talk about web, right? I mean, there's a scale of like, I just click buttons in a content management system.
Yeah.
And then there's like, I write massive global applications that are just happen to be on the web.
Yeah.
So that is a staging production test environment for very useful app devs, but totally useless to web content people.
So basically it's just...
Most of their websites, it's one environment, it's a production one, it's there, that's where they edit all the
so the database stays basically as it is, and you just push code essentially.
The only time that's sort of like not true is like, while sites are getting migrated from that old system, we have a staging site, right? It's not in production, but they're adding content to replace the old content, and then that environment would get promoted to production.
Yeah.
And the routing switchover happens.
Yeah.
Good question.
It's always been a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Tough.
I've seen like there are solutions now for the whole kind of you can kind of say, we're going to publish a whole bunch. We can have like in 2 weeks we'll publish the new version of everything, and you can. I've seen people have full things for that now, so it's definitely come a long way.
Yeah.
Drupal 8's got a lot of stuff now.
Yeah, when we wrote a plugin for Drupal called Launchpad that had to, do a lot of annoying things. That was version 7 though, so.
I remember writing something for version 4.7 for Rip It Up magazine, which was like, let's publish everything at once. It's crazy, like.
It's a very annoying problem to have.
Yeah.
Out of the platform that you have now, how much would you say is coming straight out of OpenShift, and how much did you have to write for the front end to manage things?
In terms of code?
Like, code. How much? I mean, it's a abstract question, but
they're two totally separate front ends.
Okay, so a person editing web content at the university, or even an app developer making an application, should never see OpenShift. So it's purely a management tool that's behind the scenes.
But the site manager, do you have anything that you've written, or is it all OpenShift?
It's all custom.
So, for that part,
the Shepherd portion of it is a custom web front end that uses a client that we wrote to talk to OpenShift. So this client, the OpenShift client, it's just a plain old PHP library. It's not like a Drupalism or anything like that. It just has a whole bunch of like stuff in it for doing things in OpenShift. So the client has there's like a whole bunch of crap, and then there's create secret. So adding those secrets, this is just like an API call to create a secret within OpenShift. So
Was there anything already available to use instead?
there's a published API.
Just an API, no web front end. That's where you found that you had to
so
develop
that's
something.
why we had to write one. There was one for Kubernetes that was really incomplete. And we did go down the path of trying to generate a client using their API specification. But most of the generators out there, Swagger, are really, really bad. Like until about a month ago, they didn't even use Guzzle. So like if you're doing anything in HTTP in PHP and you're not using Guzzle, you've got like serious problems.
Yeah.
So, we've probably done not the right thing by rolling our own client. Like we probably should have just like fixed Swagger and made it better so that it would work. But their API specification for OpenShift is about 2.5 megabytes. So considering the Lord of the Rings fits entirely on 1 megabyte, like it's a massive spec. And it meant that when we were generating a client from it, we ended up with a giant fat client. So what we really wanted was just the actual things we want to change, not the plethora of stuff you can do in OpenShift. So, I don't know. PR's welcome. Yeah. Go for it.
Didn't you generate it and it was like 50 meg or something of client?
It took like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was like something ridiculous. Not useful.
I'm sure the Swagger project is great if you're trying to generate documentation. It's really good. Or Java clients, because that's its wheelhouse. It is a Java application. It comes from that history. But the other languages, not really that great. So,
But it seems like something that a lot of people would want to do. It seems like it's a project that would be useful.
Interact with OpenShift via the web PHP application? Sure, dude, you can do composer require University of Adelaide / OpenShift client.
Yeah.
Ta-da, you've got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, go for it. I think it's even in packages. I just said that. Let's put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah.
Has anyone here added anything to...
I don't think we've registered.
Oh yeah! Has anyone here added anything to packages?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, raise your hand if you put something on packages.
Too scared to.
It's really, really easy. It's like literally 3 clicks and you're done. You've got to go back to your GitHub repo and tick a box, but yeah, it's mad easy. Yeah, so there you go. It's there. Simple OpenShift client for PHP. So go nuts. Yeah, if only that existed when we started, right?
So it looked like it took literally like 5 seconds for you to submit on the website.
Yeah, nuts, hey. So I'm cheating, and I'll show you how. So in OpenShift, I did the build part of it beforehand. So let's have a look at builds here. This is the distribution shepherd branch of that Git repo, so WSMSD8 shepherd branch. It's does that build process I was talking about, where it takes the source from a repo, has an image that assembles like a built version of it. It takes a long time.
Last one, it said 10 minutes.
Yeah. So it's basically like if you've released your application, you only do this once, and then every time you want a copy of that application, it's just deploying that image, and that's super quick. You saw it happens super fast. But when you make code changes, yeah, you're going to trigger builds, and then like those are going to go out. The cool thing about OpenShift in regards to builds, though, is that you can actually make it so they cascade. So you commit something to master on your Git repo, it detects that you've made that change via webhooks, does the build, and then updates all your applications for you that you've ticked to be, yes, okay, update my code when one comes down.
You can hook it up to tests and all that sort of stuff too. Yeah.
Oh, actually, this one's not going to take as long because the S2I system enables caching. So you can actually say, oh, I care about the .composer directory. So it's actually, you can see it's load from cache, load from cache, load from cache. All these things, it's kept from the last time it did a build. So.
TAR's build assets, it's pretty funky.
It's really neat. This is not a system that as a web developer you would ever be like, yeah, let's go and do OpenShift. I mean, you kind of got to be a big enterprise, right? But if you ever have the opportunity, give it a crack. It's really it's amazing. It's really well written. And the interface is, it's tight as. I mean, you can see I'm just looking around and it just works. It's really, really well written.
I suppose it comes down to like sort of business room as well, right? For like in-house infrastructure, and you want to like leverage containers in a nice way, and you don't have to.
Yeah,
There's
not have to do it all yourself.
There's also like managed cloud offerings now for OpenShift.
Yeah.
There's at least one provider outside of Red Hat offering like
Well,
hosted
that's
OpenShift.
well, how they started it. They wanted it to compete
Well,
with
yeah, so
them. So
yeah,
they wanted it
if you
to
know the
be.
history of OpenShift, they had like, this is like the third iteration now based on Kubernetes, right? But
Yeah.
it wasn't always based on
No.
Kubernetes. It based on their own thing, and they called pods gears instead of or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it was their own.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it was
container
kind of
mechanism
dying
where-
out, and then
Well, yeah,
Kubernetes kind of
so
revived
Kubernetes
it.
uses Docker as like the container format
Yeah.
for managing all that, what a container is, you know, like C groups and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, once they've moved away from like their sort of own thing and moved onto Kubernetes, things got a whole lot better. So
So you mentioned your database stuff. You don't do any of that
yeah.
in containers.
You could, and
Yeah.
I've read
I'm also
arguments
of the
in both
opinion of
directions.
just like get it out.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
no web developer wants to do databases, right? That's
Yeah.
someone else.
Yeah, that's right.
I just put it in RDS and forget about it.
Basically, it comes pretty much like when you start doing HA, that's where it gets really hard.
High availability.
Yeah.
Acronyms, bad.
Sorry.
HA's one.
Becomes really weird.
Yeah.
Basically, networking in Docker has some overheads because you're like encapsulating packets in other stuff, and so there's all these like weird network overheads as well. So like when you're trying to replicate data, you want that to happen as quick as
Yeah,
possible,
sure.
and you know, basically, don't put databases in containers if you can avoid it. Is pretty
That's the general
if you're
standard
doing
advice.
CI,
Not
Yeah.
it's not like strict advice, but
Yeah.
like
If you're doing CI or something that's
Oh,
not
yeah.
performance
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't care about,
Production
fine, mate,
mode.
go for it.
single database, and
Yeah.
it
Like
works
our
safe.
dev, yeah, of course we put our databases there
Yeah.
because it's like it's literally, I want a database, add to project, somewhere here, data stores, yeah, that'll be it. Yeah, MariaDB, go. Yeah, these things, that'll do. There you go. I got a thing now. Cool. There you go. I got a database. There's another one.
Just probably don't do it in production. That's all.
Yeah. So that build I kicked off before, it's saying to the environment I created before, ooh, someone started doing a build that's of your image. When that finishes, I'm going to update all your pods with that new build. So when this completes, what will actually happen is it'll do a blue, green, I can never remember the colours, but it switches the pods over. So it tears some down, starts some up in a new one, and then goes, yeah, they're all working, and then changes completely.
health checks and stuff, or just say, oh, here's 200 and it's
You probably
fine.
noticed the message here that says, this container has no health checks.
Ah, yes.
Haven't done that yet.
It's
Yeah.
so simple. It's just like check for 200. Like,
Yeah.
I've never actually clicked the button.
There's actually like a two
Add
phase
liveness
thing
probe.
for it. There's like liveness and readiness.
Oh yeah, true. Right.
Yeah. So like. Yeah.
He did the training. I didn't. Never tell your. Here you go. Here's an enterprise bit of advice. Never tell your organisation you're leaving until like minimum notice period. Because they're going to cut you from training. Not salty. Let's just scale that down so it's the thing quicker. The other thing you can add is like auto scalers as well. So you can say like if you start seeing increased load, just like scale it.
Yeah.
A service like this exists on Amazon as well, the Amazon Container Service.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can access it. It's cool. That's never going to finish. Oh god, it's pushing. Okay, back. So yeah, it's pushing the image now at the moment. So it should finish any second now, and then do the switch over. We'll see. There we go.
Nice.
So this is now deploying in a new image. It spins up the pod. Ooh, scale that one down. Looks like everything's good. We're going to keep going. And done. We're now on a new image. New code base.
I have one more question.
Fire away.
If you had like QWorker or something like that, obviously you run another container for that.
Sure.
Would you have two separate container images, seeing it's generally the same source for your, like using like Gmail or something? Where
You can attach, so this is a deployment within the terminology of
Yeah.
OpenShift, and you can attach what causes a rebuild based on the pushing of anything. So like
Yeah,
you can declare any sort of trigger to it.
Right.
And you can make it so that someone has a button on their desk that causes.
Yeah, because like, more saying like those containers need to change together. The deployments
Yeah,
of those containers
so,
need to change together.
You can make that happen,
Yeah,
and you can pair like dependencies between them
Yeah,
within the deployment config. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a pod isn't a container either,
It's a
so like
pool
Right,
yeah,
it's a pool of.
yeah, it's a pool of containers.
Yeah.
It's just that usually, well, I don't know about usually even, but like quite often it'll just be a single container for
Yeah.
a pod.
Yeah, like I mean, the obvious one for web space is like maybe you've got a Apache container and a Redis container or something.
Yeah.
But like even that's weird. Like why not just have one Redis instance in multiple web containers? And
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen yet a good example of an application that has multiple containers in a pod that makes sense. I mean, even in Docker world, they tend to split PHP and HTTP.
Yeah, I've seen that.
things.
That's very
Like,
strange.
What's with that? That's weird. Yeah. Like I guess it means that when you look at the pod and see what processes are running in the pod, then
Means you can scale web
the web
independently
part
of PHP.
Yeah,
Like
I guess
yeah.
so, but use case
Yeah,
please.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't know.
Alright, I'm going to stop here because pizza has been here for a little while.
Ooh.
Oh wow, yeah. Let's do that.
Apparently they couldn't read 7:30, so they delivered it at 7. So it's been out there a little while.
Apologies.